What is a country? A country is a piece of land surrounded by all sides by boundaries, usually unnatural. Englishmen are dying for England, Americans are dying for America, Germans are dying for Germany, Russians are dying for Russia. There are now 50 or 60 countries fighting in this war. Surely so many countries cannot all be worth dying for. Joseph Heller, Catch 22. This is AMI Audiobook Review. I'm your host, Jacob Szymanski. Today I'm talking to a longtime AMI employee and avid audiobook listener, Paul Daniel. And Paul, I want to hear from any avid listeners' recommendations, their favorite books, just because they listen to a bajillion books per year. You definitely fall into that category. I'm super looking forward to hearing what you have for us. How's it going?
Oh, it's going well, Jacob. Good to be here.
What are your reading habits? How often do you read? When do you read?
Every day if I can. Every day if I can. And I usually read 2 books at a time.
What? Why? One in each
Well,
hand?
I'm really bored. I got to fill time. No, I usually what I would do is go to work sometimes, and the commute was long. So what I do is I bring a book with me to fill time to read, so I can finish off a pretty big book in 1 week sometimes, or a week and a half. Right, 2 hour commute is still 2 hour commute. Going to work and coming home. If that's 4 hours, you can read a lot. And then I read a book. And I read a book at home, just something more relaxing. So whenever I go, anywhere I go, I bring something for me to read. Just keep, if I'm sitting in a coffee shop, which is the best place to enjoy a book, or your favorite reading area with your favorite beverage. I read as much as I possibly can. I have so many books on my TBR mountain. And when I say mountain, I'm not kidding. It's taller than me, which is not saying much when you think about it. But anything over 4 feet or 5 feet is tall, right? So, so I have a couple of thousand books to get around too. So
it's funny that you mentioned the coffee shop. At one point in time, I used to work at a coffee shop in Ottawa, and I was surprised at how often people came just to read a book. Even if it wasn't for that long, just a little 30 minutes, have a cappuccino, read a book. And every time I saw them, I was like, man, those people are living the life. There's something kind of nice about going to a coffee shop alone and just enjoying your time to yourself.
There is something about it's just relaxing, with yourself, and it's even better when the coffee shop doesn't have any piped-in music. It's great. I mean, you're right. It's relaxing. It's outside of your own home. It's a good place to read, and of course, a library. And a lot of libraries now have comfy areas, comfy chairs to sit back and enjoy. Yeah, which is the way it should be. A library should be a place of quiet and relaxation.
What I wonder is if you go to a library and sit in one of these comfortable chairs and you just put on a pair of headphones and listen to an audiobook, are they going to think you're just taking a nap or reading a book? How could they prove it? Hey, they're like, well, what are you listening to? Let me hear it.
I'm reading It's Called Mockingbird. You listen to some heavy metal, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's don't use the chairs.
What's that? Oh, that's a different version of the book.
I know. That's discrimination against audiobook listeners. I'm not gonna have it.
They're not gonna. No, most people don't bother you as long as you're not. Most people don't bother you if you're quiet, And so I've occasionally dozed off in a library.
It's a good place to doze off.
It is. It's a great place.
Paul, I want to hear from your recommendations, though. And the first book you have for us is Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs by Luis Elizondo. What is this?
I saw him being interviewed on a program. There's a Daily Show. And I didn't think the interview was particularly good, actually. I thought the interview, the author deserved a better interview. But the book itself was really interesting because it's not a typical book about UFOs. Usually we talk about this kind of UFOs or life out there. It's always done from a perspective of the guy with a tinfoil hat or looking for the black helicopters. This guy worked in military intelligence. He worked for the Department of Homeland Security. He investigated terrorism. He was also the former head of the. And I want to read the department correctly. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, otherwise known as ATIP, that was run within the Department of Defense in the United States. So this guy knew what he was talking about. And also, he described in his book, he was approached by people to work on this project, not because he had any interest in UFOs. He didn't. he was always asked, "What do you think about UFOs?" I don't think about them. I don't think about stuff like that. And it's never been a topic of something I've been looked into. And they said, "No." Well, how about, would you be willing to look into it for us? Would you be willing to run this department? And he said, "Yeah." And he didn't know. And the thing is, he walked in with no expectations whatsoever. And then he found out there's a lot more going on. And it's become now almost not fashionable, but it's become a little more open to discuss it now because of the U.S. government has acknowledged that they've been following things around. They released footage from military aircraft about unusual aircraft they've seen. They can't describe it. They admit there's something out there. They're not saying what it is, but they admit there's something out there.
So sorry. The U.S. government released videotapes of
past 2 or 3 years. Yeah,
past 2 or 3 years of what they claim are UFOs, or at least they can't identify what these things that are flying around
objects.
are. Objects.
These are things, footage from footage filmed by military personnel in the cockpit. They have cameras, right? And they're saying they see something following them. And let me give you one example. A few years back, a guided missile cruiser detected a large number of UAPs. That's the new phrase now for UFOs. Unidentified aerial phenomenon. Okay, UAPs, and one of them it was even intercepted. It was described as a wingless, white, 48-foot long craft, moving at incredible speed, and then we can move up and down without any kind of no kind of propulsion. It had no wings, and the pilot who was following it, on the transcript you can hear him say this: "Whatever it is, it's not of this world." That's what he said.
So you're saying it's a UFO, like there are government agencies that are investigating UFOs, and this book is a nonfiction account of those investigations, of actual government investigations of UFOs. That's so trippy. So after reading this book, do you believe in aliens?
I don't know. They don't call them aliens anymore. They call them NHIs, non-human intelligence.
Oh, okay. It's not UFO anymore either.
There's one good. Here's something I found out though. Italy, for example, has logged over 15,000 sightings of UAPs since 1901. The Vatican has its own intelligence system regarding unidentified objects. Even the Vatican.
I don't know what to make of that. Jeez.
No, exactly. What do you make of it? I don't know what to make of it. And then the stories you tell in the book are extraordinary. I mean, accounts. Again, it's not just in the United States or in Canada, but around the world. Like some testimony, affidavits from people saying that, my dog went close. I saw an unusual orb moving around and it landed within 40 feet. My dog got close to it and then it vaporized.
Okay, all of this, I don't know what to make of. It sounds pretty nutty. It sounds pretty nutty when you put it all out there. Is this a book that's like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, is it well respected? Like,
he is well respected.
You can write all sorts of books about conspiracy theories and nutty stuff like that. Like, where's the respect factor with this?
The military is saying this, right? The military is saying this. The book had to be cleared by the Pentagon review process, and there are parts of the book that had to be redacted. Not a lot, but a few pages here and a few lines here and there had to be redacted. And so, like I said, here's another thing he pointed out. Something he pointed out again. One thing about the book that's really good is it's well footnoted. One thing he points out, he says the U.S. government has awarded multiple servicemen 100% disability coverage due to medical issues as a result of encounters with UAPs. Why would the U.S. government, they're giving soldiers who've had encounters with UAPs, I'm not sure, they don't describe what that means, but they've been given disability coverage since they can't work anymore.
So I said earlier that I don't know what to make of this.
Nor do I.
Okay, I guess that answers my questions, because I was going to say, like, what did you take out of reading this
book? There's something going on.
Like, sure, you just know that there's something going on, but it's hard to wrap your head around it.
Here's the thing. It's like there's enough information, but then again, not enough information. For example, here's a story. When he mentions, of course, Roswell. You've all heard of Roswell, right? In Roswell, New Mexico.
And for the people who don't know, what is Roswell?
Roswell in 1947, there was it was reported that a spacecraft, a UFO had crashed. And the military said, no, it was a weather balloon of some kind. It wasn't, and they showed a massive effort. And for years, it's always been sort of, oh, Area 51. That's what Area 51 in Roswell, New Mexico. You store all the aircraft and everything there is all stored there. Well, according to Elizondo, and the best he could do, he could not give it. Again, this is the part of the problem with this kind of topic. He gave you only half the answer. What he found out was that there were some a craft did crash. It broke in two. It was taken to a secure location. Has been moved to other locations since then. Then, of course, the next question is, were there any bodies? He goes, that's the part I can't talk about.
Okay, that's pretty ominous.
He's not a crazy person. That's the thing. He's not a crazy. The guy's well respected. He's doing, he didn't walk in with any preconceptions, and he's getting all his information. And the government's still very reluctant to talk about it. They want to give the impression of disclosure, but in his opinion, of disclosure, but they're being reluctant about it.
Well, I guess whoever ends up reading this book can make up their own mind. This is
Indeed.
Imminent: Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs by Luis Elizondo. The next book you have for us is Ringmaster: Vince McMahon and the Unmaking of America by Abraham Josephine Reisman. Is this Vince McMahon, the WWE guy?
Indeed it is. The Vince McMahon guy. And we all know McMahon. He's gotten a lot of attention in the last few years for all the wrong reasons. But it's a great book, though. I give the author a lot of credit. Ms. Reisman did a fine job with research and interviews, and provided a lot of excellent insight into the garish spectacle, how a garish spectacle like like wrestling became mainstream. She also delves into the business and also the seamier side of the wrestling industry, and it's pretty dark in there sometimes.
And so this is a biography. My question that I always ask people when I talk to them about biographies is, how honest is it? Is it a propaganda piece? Is it personal propaganda, or is it honest? Like, how much does it?
It's honest.
It's honest. How so? Like, what did we learn about Vince McMahon?
The subtitle alone tells you Vince McMahon and the Unmaking of America. So he's not. So Ms. Reisman is not walking around promoting Vince McMahon. She's got, she's saying, she gives him credit for what he did. He took a bunch of regional wrestling circuits and made him into the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, or now call it WWE. And he made it mainstream. He made wrestling mainstream. He took, before they were always like, fringe type things. The kind of thing you and I, when we were kids, watching things like wrestling on a Saturday afternoon and watching it like a cartoon. Now it's not a cartoon. Now it's like it's a show. It's a lowbrow spectacle, but it's
undeniably entertaining, though.
It's entertaining, right? And the fact that we have newspapers and that there are blogs now, and then for a while in the 80s and the 90s, papers would have, in the sports section, have columns by wrestling columns. Guys talking about what was happening in the wrestling world, as if it was like someone talking about hockey and the latest results. It became mainstream, and that in itself is genius in some ways. He made it, and he made a lot of money off it.
Especially when you consider what wrestling is. It's like pageantry. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
There is athleticism involved, obviously, but it's theatrics too. It's just kind of a melding of the two. And what Vince McMahon did was he got people to fully engage with it as if it was a real sport, even though everybody knows it's theatrics and setup. I mean, that's besides the point, right?
Exactly. It's a soap opera in the ring. It's a soap opera in the four squared circle, right? That's what it is. It's a soap opera. They present these story arcs. They have writers in the WWE for the television broadcast and the special events they have, like SummerSlam and WrestleMania. All these big events. They're all built on story arcs, right? Good guy versus bad guy. Good guy turns bad, whatever.
I mean, even like real sports are kind of like that. There's all these narratives around real sports. They just kind of develop on a more, surface level, where with the wrestling like this, like American wrestling, they go the extra mile and just like plan it out like it's an actual narrative. And I guess for some, and then I kind of understand why people engage with that, because it's just more. It feels more human in a weird way, even though it's fake, right?
It's a distraction. It's a harmless distraction. It plays on, it played for years. It played on stereotypes. The good guy, on cultural ethnic stereotypes for years, and still do to a certain extent. Whatever's popular, and they play this little game, and it works. It works now, and now there's, again, you cannot deny the athleticism involved. Is it choreographed? Yeah, because you can hear them sometimes tell each other, okay, now I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to do this. You can hear them say it sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, well, no, there are. Wow. You go on YouTube, you can hear them. You can hear them talking. You can hear them. Okay, I'm going to do this now, and they can hear them respond. Oh my God, I did the wrong thing. This didn't hurt, right? And here's two things about McMahon I did not know. He had a small hand in promotion of two big freak events in the 70s. One was Evel Knievel's jump over the Snake River Canyon in a modified rocket. Remember that he was involved in that. He said Evel Knievel was crazy. That's what McMahon said. More than one occasion, Knievel pulled a gun on him. That's one. And the other one was the exhibition match between Muhammad Ali and a Japanese wrestling champion, Antonio Inoki. And the entire fight, 10 rounds of Inoki would not fight Ali like a wrestler. He fought him. He lied on his back, moving on like a crab, kicking Ali in the shins for 10 rounds. That was the whole thing.
I mean, that's undeniable. That's who thinks of that.
It's it's the most boring thing. It's the most ridiculous thing to watch. But it's you can go on YouTube and find it if you're so inclined. But yeah, so he once called himself, McMahon once called himself the Walt Disney of wrestling. And that's exactly what it is. He's creating a fantasy.
He's an Imagineer.
Exactly. A lot of money. Yeah. A lot of money being involved. Yeah.
This is a memoir, or more of a biography. It's
a biography of McMahon and also of wrestling in general, and then basically how it reflects upon American culture, and it became part of American culture. I mean, it was, like I said, he took it from the fringes and made it mainstream. I mean, we all know the names Hulk Hogan. We all know the names of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Even if you have a passing read of a sports page, you'll come across those names. They become. It's not just wrestling now. Now it's part of culture, and that's incredible.
Well, I find this tie into culture fascinating though, because the title of the book is Ringmaster, Vince McMahon and the Unmaking of America. What does the author mean by the Unmaking of America?
This is where I think he felt on this part where Ms. Reisman fell short. I think because she didn't explain it as well as I think she could have. But I think the fact is that the reflection of how the wrestling industry treated its own people. I mean, Ms. Reisman writes numerous examples of women who were sexually harassed, even sexually assaulted, wrestlers, drug abuse, dealing with suicide, and then, of course, the horrifying incident where one wrestler, Owen Hart, was killed during a live broadcast.
Oh,
he fell from a rope type of thing, and he was supposed to make a dramatic entrance, and he fell and he broke his neck, and he was in everything is all part of a game, part of the game, part of the story, and there are EMT people working all the time trying to save him in the ring, and they brought the announcer kept saying, "This isn't a joke, guys. This is real."
Yeah, to say, wow.
So
that's
it's
dark.
a reflection. It is dark. It's a dark side because people like this stuff. I mean, it's a spectacle, a lowbrow spectacle, but it's got a really dark side to it because wrestlers don't get paid some don't get paid a lot of money.
So
they get treated poorly.
Do you feel like the author dropped the ball in covering that aspect of the sport?
She could have done maybe a little more, perhaps. Maybe to be fair, maybe I missed it. But I think maybe a little more explanation, perhaps. I think she sort of implied that the Imminent of America, by the way McMahon treated things. I mean, before in the industry, it's always a big secret. We know it's fake, but we don't say it out loud. But now they basically admit it. Yeah, it's a show. It's sports entertainment. They call it. So in that respect, I think maybe she fell short. But is it worth reading? Absolutely. It's an entertaining book. It's thoughtful, smartly written, and good research on her part.
If anyone's interested in this book, it's Ringmaster, Vince McMahon and the Unmaking of America by Abraham Josephine Reisman. The next one you have for us, and I've heard of this one before, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about it. It's Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison.
Published in 1952, instantly hailed as a classic. And the protagonist, who's never mentioned by name, he's fighting from the streets of, this guy doesn't have it easy. He has it hard. And there's a great line in the book where he says, I'm riding the race I'm forced to ride. A black man coming from the deep south in the 50s, trying to make his way through life, and he can't. He goes to Harlem. He's into street fighting, a type of almost like a fight club type, what we call now fight clubs. Back then, trying to survive, fighting almost like human cockfights. Now,
Wow.
back then, fighting. Yeah, he goes to a communist rally where they're treated like statues. Black men are treated like statues or trophies as opposed to human beings. It's a harsh reality of that. At the time, many people, especially in white America, did not appreciate. And it's at times it's harsh, horrifying, dare I say, even occasional hilarious moments.
It's like darkly hilarious.
It's, well, not always, but the thing is, he gives there are moments of relief. Just to have a joke here and there.
See, what I've heard about this book is it's actually surprisingly funny when you consider
there is funny.
the subject matter. And I appreciate that in a book that's covering a difficult topic, like race relations in America, especially in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
How is it handled, though? Because I've seen that done poorly. How is it done in this case?
He handles it well. I think Mr. Ellison. I'm not. He's an American, a classic American writer, and he's fantastic. So I'm not gonna sit there and say, I thought it was subpar. I thought he did a very fine job. I thought it's a great book. It's involved. He takes you on a journey. It's a long and involved journey, but not a dull one by any means. And you have to pay attention. And there's a certain point. As a person I was reading, think, when does this guy get a break? When does the protagonist finally receives some dignity? When does this man, I guess the phrase is, when does this guy finally win? And you realize in the 50s, back then, victory wasn't always possible for a lot of people. It's a hard. It's he's the invisible man, because there's this great title, because that's what happens. He's not even there. There's a good line in the book that says where the protagonist says, "Perhaps I like Louis Armstrong because he's made poetry out of being invisible." And
if
I think
you
that
can't
says
participate in society, you might as well be invisible.
Indeed,
it's that simple. So just to be clear, this is a work of fiction, right? It's not a memoir.
It's a work of fiction.
It's a work of fiction. Okay, that's The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. That was published back in 1952, which that's a while ago. It's over 70 years ago.
Yep.
And sometimes I find older books tend to have a dated writing style. Is this book still approachable?
Yes, I think it very much is. A good book is always approachable.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I have my doubts.
Thank
but I'll take your word for it.
No,
I always approach older books with some reticence.
No, take it for what it is. But the thing is, now that wall, that bigotry, the attitude back then is still alive today. It's just more sophisticated.
Yeah, that's
right?
one way to put it. Sophisticated.
I'm being polite here.
Tongue in cheek. I need to ask you, because I can tell you're the type of person that doesn't really hold back, and I wouldn't ask this to everyone. What's the worst book you've read recently?
The worst book I've read? Oh, I read a book about a year ago. Oh my God, it was a terrible book. It was called Clinton Cash: The Untold Story of How and Why Foreign Governments and Businesses Helped Make Bill and Hillary Rich. Oh, and a friend of mine gave me this book. I said, Paul, a friend of mine gave me this book, right? I said, hey, and then he says to me, gee, you actually read it, Paul? I said, don't ever give me this book again. This is a terrible. The book was, it's one of these put up by the publishing companies that publishes only right-wing material. And the title alone tells you how much that the author doesn't like Hillary Clinton, Bill and Hillary Clinton. And even the pictures, it's going to tell the pictures are totally unflattering of Bill and Hillary. It just falls from that. And everything, and every little thing is a terrible thing. There's nothing redeeming about these people at all. Now, this is nothing new, but you asked me the worst book I've read so far in the recently. Well, about a year or two ago, I read that book. Oh my goodness.
No, it's awkward because it's like the person that recommended you the book, did they give it to you expecting that you would really like it?
No. They knew.
Oh.
They knew. I think it was a joke.
They're trolling you. They're like, oh, what a waste of time.
He was being a wise guy. But you know, to be perfectly fair, I like to read things that are different from. I give them a fair shot. This book and books like it, you can tell it's kind of books. You can see them by the title and everything, and the research is poor. I mean, all the footnotes are all from right-wing podcasters. He's quoting other people like him.
Yeah, you can't source people like that. You can't use a podcast as a source. That means you can't source us too. We're not a valid source, guys. We're just here giving our opinions here. We're not academics over here. The furthest thing from, actually. Paul, I want to thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you bringing us these 3 recommendations and anti-recommendation. We're going to make sure to include those 3 titles in the description of the podcast and the YouTube video for anyone who's interested. Paul, thank you so much for your time. This was awesome.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, Jacob.
Of course. That was Paul Daniel. He's a longtime employee at AMI and an avid audiobook listener. That's all the time for this edition of AMI Audiobook Review. AMI Audiobook Review airs weekends at 1 p.m. Eastern on AMI Audio and repeats every 6 hours. But we also make ourselves easy to find. We're on all the big podcasting platforms, and that includes YouTube. You can email us at audiobookrareview@ami.ca for any feedback you may have. We regularly get back to those emails on the show. You can also follow us on Instagram. That's at AMI Audiobook Review. And it's not just for plugging the next episode. We're posting reels of our best moments on this show and exclusive content as well. Thanks for tuning into AMI Audiobook Review. I'm your host, Jacob Szymanski. Happy listening.